only take it once, right?
Yes, one time. Okay, there we go. Okay, there's a, I'll show you where those are at. Okay, first,
Read chapter 1, take a quiz.
It's on detail.
okay, I'll go into D2L again and show you guys. And because I need to take attendance anyway.
I don't see the quiz. Well, on table of contents,
There's a quizzes right across the top. Go to course tools,
okay.
course tools, and then, okay, let's see, 9:30.
There was one.
You what?
We didn't know there was one.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, well, I was going to go through all that again on Evernote so today, because all the logistics of my class is a little different sometimes than others. Okay, let me go ahead and get rolled because there was a couple of people. Is there an Ehab here? Ihab? Abdul Saman? No. Okay, so this person is probably Gently. Okay. Chase. Which one's Chase? Okay. Rylan.
Here.
Okay. Samuel.
Here.
Okay. Lacadia. Okay. Jeremy.
Here.
Okay. Nathan.
Yeah.
Austin. Okay. Adam, right?
Yep.
Okay. Sean. Sean. No, no Sean. Okay. Brant. Zedric. Okay. Christopher. Okay. Reed. Okay, that was Reed. Lewis. Okay. Jared. Okay, that's Jared. Jonathan. Okay, back. And Matthew. Okay. All right. Anybody that I didn't call your name or you didn't see your name? Okay. All right. So one of the questions was about the quiz. Might as well quit trying to use that. The quiz, if you go into D2L and you go under course tools, there will be a quiz usually available for approximately a week when each chapter is assigned. So these may not be showing up, but because they don't have the right date on them yet. But this one's chapter 1. When you click on it, it comes up. Oops, I didn't do preview. Hold on. Yours will come up like this. And it will tell you the instructions. And then it tells you the timer will not begin until after the setup process is finished. So you'll click Start Quiz, and there'll be a timer on it. So you remember last time I told you, you can use your book, or if you just have it in a PDF, you can have the PDF called up. So you can look up the answers, but it is timed, so you can't usually, you do not have time to look them all up. But what the quiz will basically be from the either anything that's in bold print, like terms and stuff in the chapter, and then the two boxes that are at the end that I'll pull that up here in the textbook. At the end of every chapter, there's a little yellow, looks like a sticky note that says programming tools, and then one says Python tools, I think. But I'll show it to you here. And that's where the questions will come from, those. And you can, they're very easy. It's basically to see if you're reading the textbook. Programming. I'll pull the book up here. Okay, so chapter 1, let me see if it's gonna, how am I doing the view? Page. Scrolling. All right, let me get it a little bit bigger here. Okay, so if I just go down to the bottom, I think that's about page, let's see, the chapter of this book. Oh, won't let me put it in once I start scrolling it. Come on, not quite so fast. Because this is the one part where, Jared, is that right?
Yeah.
Jared, where he was talking about we'll get, wow, it's going by itself now. Okay. Well, before I get to that, where the quiz is, I want to show you something here at the very, what page was that? 6, I think. Let me see. Huh. Won't let me do either back and forth for some reason. It's like, okay, that was one page that we needed. Is there anyone that did not find the zipped file with all of the problems that are in the chapters? Anybody have trouble finding that? Okay, that's what I just went through or went past. Man, this is giving me a problem today.
Whoa.
It's moving by itself.
Uh-oh.
Okay, let me see here.
What's it file are you talking about? I don't think that is.
Okay, I'll show you here. I'm going to go back down to change the display to, maybe I need to do, it's doing scrolling, but I just did too much at a time, I think. Okay, it's right after, in the very beginning, I told you to do the README in the textbook, which is this part. Okay, and in this page, let me go a little larger here. Okay, there is the link to where you download Python to your computer. Then if you keep going down, okay, come on, let me just scroll. And it tells you here the activities are not optional. What that means is I don't require them. Okay, stop. Okay, this is the other part. This link right here takes you to a location where you can download a zip file of all of the programs that are done in each chapter. So if you go down to right here where it says code viewing and downloads, you can download all the code in the book as a zip file, or you can download one chapter at a time. And when you get finished, you should have, it'll say, if you download the whole zip file, it'll be this one right here, HF for Head First Program Resources.zip. Okay, and if you don't know what a zip file, that's the compressed file. And so when you double click it or right click in Windows and say extract all, you have to do that in Windows. You can't just double click. On the Mac, I double click and it makes this folder, HF Prog Resources. And so that's why I don't grade these, because you do have the completed ones here, but I will still go over them. So chapter 1, this particular program, if I can get it without my mouse, I'm going to open it in idle. And we're going to talk a little bit about idle, and I'll talk about the loops, and we're going to talk about some other things right here. Okay, when you open idle, if you are on, I think it's this way on Windows too, you can change the preferences. The reason mine, when I opened up the file, you notice it opened up a blank screen. Well, behind it was the actual program that was in that zipped file, okay? Well, the reason mine opened up this way instead of like a black screen, if you double click that file, it would just try to run it in Windows as an exe, and you don't see the editor if you tried to do that. Who all downloaded Python at home? or on their home computer. Okay, so did yours open up like this?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't have any trouble, because over here, when you do preferences, what's that? When you do preferences, you can change the font size. Like I can go in here and change the style of font. I can make it a little larger if I want. I can do highlighting is the color coding that's here, and I can change that, but you probably won't want to do that. But the general is what normally this defaults to be set up as the open shell window. So if yours doesn't come up, if it comes up and like it runs and has these little greater than symbols, you'll see here in just a minute what I'm talking about, then you didn't get to the edit window.
Okay. That explained mine.
Okay, so you can, it'll automatically, usually when you install it, it installs as opening the shell window versus the edit window. Okay, you guys got that? So mine is defaulted to do open edit window. So this is the program at the end of chapter 1, right? It has everything in it that you learned in chapter 1. So in the beginning, does anybody remember, did it show you how to do a comment? I think it did. A comment is a line of code that you put out there that you don't want the browser to look at. Okay, you just want it for you to see. And so sometimes as we get going into Python and into the class, what students end up doing instead of pseudocoding is they comment every line of code to tell me, okay, this code does this, this one does this, okay? So if I want to put this program back to what it was at the beginning, I'm going to just tell the browser to ignore these 2 lines of code. Basically, that's what I'm doing, because I don't want to delete them and put them back, okay? So I'm saying these are what we learn at the end of the chapter, right? So we're going to comment those 2 out. So in the beginning, all we're doing is we're starting here, print welcome, and we have the while loop. But there's one thing that won't work. Very good. So I need to change this. I'm not going to ran to like 5, right? Somebody said 5, I think. So the reason I'm doing that is because up here at the end of the chapter, it's randomly generating a value that it puts in the variable called secret. So right now, I'm not using the variable secret. So I need to change it down here also, right? While guess is not equal, oh wait, that didn't supposed to say not equal to 5. While guess, yeah, and then I have to say if guess is the same as 5. I'm just using 5 as a number. I could put any number in there that I wanted between 1 and 10, okay? We're just starting out the first time and running it with 5. Is that going to work? What do I need to do?
Well, yeah, the else later on is also on secret. So you have to
Very
change
good.
that.
So I have to change it. If guess is greater than 5, then it says, okay, so this should be close to what it was like in the beginning. Okay, so we have 3 things going on here. We have print welcome, which is going to display welcome to the screen when I run it. Then I set guess equal to 0, which really isn't necessary since I'm not randomly generating it. Later we'll do that, so I'll comment that line out too. Yes?
Why can't you just, on the guess equals 0, why can't you just write guess equals integer or whatever, the int, G-I-N-T?
You can do that. That would work. But the reason we even have that there is whenever we do a random integer there, we want to be sure before we do a comparison here that there's not garbage out here in memory where that variable is. Because what variables, we have a variable called guess, we have a variable called G. Is there any other variables that we're using right now? Since we took secret out, that's the only ones. So variables is the very first thing you were supposed to learn in this chapter, right? That's a term that will be on quiz 1, I can tell you. What is a variable? Well, a variable, we have to know what our variables are, what their names are, and what their purpose is, and that's what pseudocode and flowchart is about, and that's what we're going to look at here in a minute. But, okay, so to run this, what question did you have about the loop?
Well, I guess you've taken out the guess equals 0 when we had that in there. Did we put that to 0 because your guess is going to be 1 through 10?
Okay, the reason you do that, every language, regardless of it, C++, Java, whatever it is, when you're working with a variable and it's called initializing the variable, you don't know what might be out there in memory in that location previously. Okay, because that's all you're doing with a variable is you're saying, hey, I'm going to take this spot out here in memory in the computer. I'm going to give it a label called guess, and then I'm going to plug values into it, right? So in the beginning, if I don't tell it to put a 0 in there, there might be some kind of erroneous stuff, garbage out in there, we call it, from some prior run. Okay, so every language, I'm not saying that there would be, but it's safest, that's called housekeeping in every language. You like to initialize all your variables so that you know, without a doubt, that it starts out with what you think it has, okay?
Is it always 0?
No, you can initialize them. Sometimes there are other things that you want to initialize it with, but in this case, we want to be sure that nothing's in there. So that's why we put 0. 0 is the numeric integer for nothing, okay?
What if we keep having a syntax error on the G input?
I'll look at it here in just a minute, okay? Because that is probably has to do with when you read this in, what kind of value is G? When you say input, guess the number, is this an integer? No. It's a it's a variable. You're correct on that. But the thing is, anytime you type something in and it goes into this variable, it's looked at as a character. Even if it's numeric, even if you type an 8, 9, whatever you type, when it comes in as input, it's looked at as a character. So you can't do any kind of calculation or comparison. It's called a string, a character string. And so that's what this statement is about. Int, with the parameter G, it's saying, make this G into an integer and put it into this variable guess. Because remember, the equal sign is an assignment operator. So it's different from in math. Used to, if we said make A, we'd say is A equal to B, we're talking about equality. But that's not what this is in programming. It's called an assignment operator, and so whatever value is in B now becomes A becomes that. So if A was equal to 1 and B was equal to 3, after this statement, A would be equal to 3. Because you're setting whatever's on the right, you're putting it into the variable that's on the left.
I realized my problem. I had if in front of that guess equals integer.
Okay, you had if there. All right, so this is what's important in Python and really in other languages too, is you have to be sure that you are comparing integers to integers and strings to strings. And so in this case, in the first problem, we're only wanting to do a comparison to an integer. So the double equals is the comparison operator, not the single equals. If I had a single equals here, it would put 5 into guess, okay? So here it says if guess is the same as 5, print you win. Else, if guess is greater than 5, print too high else. Now, to run it this way, we already know what we need to put in here because it's not randomly doing anything. So when I run it, oops, I've got an error. While guess is
You gotta take out
Yeah,
the
take out the,
exclamation.
Yeah.
named guess. Oh, named guess is not defined. Wait a minute. No, it's saying guess. While guess. It's saying guess is not defined. It is going to make me do that, I think. Yeah. It was saying, okay, while guess, well, I'd never put anything in guess. So I had to put the 0 in
Is
guess.
that what starts the loop?
Yes. And you always, on a while loop, you want to initialize your counter or whatever you call it outside the loop first. And then when you go into the loop, it does the comparison. Then at the bottom of the loop, it needs to be changed in that random int, it does. So here, if we say guess the number, so I put 4, too low, guess the number, 7. I'm just testing to see if all parts of it work. Too high, guess the number. Now if I put 5, you win, game over. Okay? So now if I go back and I take my random int, what is random int? What is that? What is this?
I'm just setting it up.
And what is that called? Do you know what this is called? We haven't really gotten, I don't know if it told you in that chapter or not, that's called a predefined function, a pre-built function. It's one that you don't see the code behind here. And there's a lot of them in every language that are pre-built code that can be used over and over. So they're cataloged, they're reserved words, so to speak. You can't ever use randint as a variable name or as your own function name because it is a reserved pre-built function where that it randomizes. You have to give it 2 parameters. It can be any 2. Here it's saying give me a random number between 1 and 10, including 1 and 10. And I can put any 2 numbers in there that I want and it'll randomize, okay? So you're saying, it's saying, give me a random number, put it in the variable secret, then start my program. So I need to go back and change these to secret. So see, you should be able, since you get this program at the end given to you, then what your challenge would be to start it at the beginning before you have the one that works and make sure you can work it through each step in the chapter if you haven't done that yet, okay? Go through the chapter a step at a time. All right, so here it should run randomly with any thing that I put. Guess the number, let's say 6, too low, so 8, you win. I picked it fast, huh? All right, so we can do that. That's just a simple little game program with Python. The thing about Python and the reason we use scripting, I used to use JavaScript in this class, is that you don't have to compile the program and find all the errors. It's something you can, it tells you right away what's wrong and run it again. Check it, yeah. So it's pretty cool to be able to apply what you're learning. Now, I want to go back to one part in the textbook, if I can get it to scroll properly for me. There's at the very beginning, seems like it was page 6. Let me see if it'll let me put the 6 in here. Oops. Come on. There. All right. Maybe it wasn't 6. Where it was the one right before where it wrote the program. Oops. Now it's really doing that to me. Let's see if I can do it this way, maybe. Part of it's because I don't have my mouse. Okay, yeah, up here at the very beginning when it gave you the program first. Oh, come on. I'm going to have to, it's because I don't have my mouse. I'm better with the mouse. I don't know if my batteries are not working in it or something. Oh my goodness. Okay, the one, what I'm trying to find is the page in the book where it gives you that program And then it has you write out beside it what you think it's doing.
Yeah, it's on page
3. Okay, I'm almost there. Yeah. Yeah, page 4 is the answers. Okay, so what it's having you do, and you can't hardly read that. What it's having you do is to write down what you think that code is going to do. That is a sort of, oh, there we go, on its own. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, stop. Stop. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay. I'm going to go here to page display and just go single page view, and maybe that'll do it. Because then I think I have to turn the page. Okay, so when you, well, you can't see it. Anyway, when you wrote that out, that is a form of pseudocode because you're telling what each line of code is doing. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually, in our pseudocode and in our flowchart, we're going to plan our variables. We're not just going to say, this is what this line of code does. We're going to use the variables and then use that verbiage like that. And I'll show you two that we're going to go into. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that program that we just did? Or we looked at? Matthew.
Yeah, on some of the lines it says print you win,
Uh-huh.
but then another line that says G equals input, guess the answer. And so the program puts up, guess the number. So in the beginning it goes, welcome, guess the number. And the way you got that guess the number thing to show up is you wrote G equals input. And then on the other lines you
Okay,
write
just a,
print.
okay. This let me get it up here, and then you can tell me what you're talking, which line you're talking about. Okay, in this program right here, right?
So, let's see. So the third line down, print welcome.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the screen when you're playing the game, this welcome comes up.
Right.
So then, it's about 3 more lines down, G equals input, guess the number.
Oh, why does that come up?
Yeah, because.
Okay, there's several ways you can put things to the screen. This command input, that's built into it, that anything in parentheses, in quotes.
Why wouldn't you do G equals input, welcome? Get it?
Oh.
Like on the third line down, why don't you write G equals input, welcome, instead of print welcome?
Oh, yeah, because that's telling them that you're looking for an input. Print just means put this out to the screen. But anytime you use the word input, it's going to sit there and wait for an input. Okay? And so at welcome, you're not wanting the user to enter anything. You're just saying, welcome to the game. And then it goes on and says, guess the number. And it'll sit there and wait at guess the number until you hit some sort of key. Okay? So in every program, there's going to be input, processing, and output.
What about the G? Like, is it always going to be a G?
Oh, no, that's a variable. You can make it anything you want to call it. Okay? Yes.
On the input, where you set the variable guess and you convert the variable G into an integer.
Uh-huh.
What if the input wasn't a number? Say they inputted like a letter.
Okay, if they input a letter, then you won't be able to do this comparison. And it will.
It wouldn't be able to convert a letter to an integer, though.
No, it will not. And so it would give you an error. Yes.
So you said G is just a variable. Does that mean you're limited to how many letters there are, or as far as your variables?
Variables? Oh, no, you can name them just like this one's named guess.
Okay.
I could name this anything that made sense. People in algebra always use X, Y, Z's, all that, which really doesn't make any sense. But in programming, in fact, I probably wouldn't have used G. They just did that in short because they're really, it's like an interim variable. They're going to use the word guess, which makes more sense. Right. So anything you want to call it is what that variable can be, as long as it's not a reserved word for that language. Like what I was saying, when we start naming functions, we couldn't use this. We couldn't use, so you couldn't use while as a variable name, if, else. Those things that are in orange are reserved words, okay? And normally we make all variables lowercase. It's not that it wouldn't work if you used uppercase, but it's just pretty standard to make variables lowercase because there are some that are reserved that are uppercase. And in, I think, chapter 2, we're going to learn something about a special kind of variable called a constant. And those usually are all caps, okay? But that's, again, by programmer preference, and you get used to seeing it. The big thing is that you develop a standard that you know is how you're going to code it and always be consistent, okay? All right, any other questions about that one? Okay, so what I want to look at is one that's a little bit easier in D2L, but we're going to go through and flowchart and pseudocode it. And so if I go over to, and I'm hoping I put it in UALS, I didn't put it in the other class. I had to go back and fix it. Should be in content, under content, there should be class examples. Oh, I didn't put it there, I think, because it looks just like theirs. Whenever you hold, nope, it didn't. Okay, let me put it out there. And then you'll be able to get it also. I put class examples, but for some reason the files didn't go. And then I'm going to add the actual.
Talking about under class examples.
Should just put it up there.
I just now did. I put it, wasn't there. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's it. She literally just put it on.
Okay, there's that one, add. Okay, now you should get this one too. Okay, so what we're going to look at first is if we wanted to simply, you were given a simple problem that you were to write a program that if the user entered 2 numbers, it would give them the sum, okay? So we do these real simple ones to learn the coding part. So let me go. You should be able to call it up in a document. I'm going to do it here. And go bigger. Let's go about it. Okay, now I can't change these shapes because I drug this into the Word document as an image, so it won't let me change them right now, but let me make it even bigger. These shapes are important when you're flow charting. And a lot of students in this class go to straight pseudocoding after a little while, but I have to give you an introduction to flow charting so that you understand, in case you were to get in a situation where you had to code a flow chart. In industry, when I was there in 70s and 80s, that's what they used, was flow charting. But I always had my pseudocode on the side because I like to make it look more like the language. But there's usually 1 or 2 people in the class that prefer, and they can see the picture drawn out easier than the pseudocode. So you can later on, like the first project and the first hands-on test, I have you do both. But later on, I let you choose which way it means more to you. But you do need to use the correct shapes because each one of these shapes means something. Remember, I was telling you every program has to have input, processing, and output. So that's what you show with these symbols. And used to, there was old IBM templates. You didn't have programs. I had to draw them all out by hand. It was a little template you traced around for all those shapes. And this one is an ellipse, and it's used at the beginning and the end of a program. It's called the terminal symbol, but it's an ellipse. And so these are what you use, and then you connect it. These are parallelograms. You notice anywhere there's output or input, it's in a parallelogram, okay? And you don't have to use two separate ones here. This one was done that way, get num 1, get num 2, but you could say get num 1, comma num 2. That would be correct also, and have just the one shape, okay? Then the rectangle is the processing step. So any kind of calculation that I'm gonna do on my input is always in a rectangle, okay? And then my output, again, is in a parallelogram. And then I end. So that's what you'll do in Lucidchart. You drag those shapes over in Lucidchart, and then you just connect them. And you type in there what you want. So that's the flowchart to add two numbers. Here's pseudocode. Pseudocode is exactly what was in each one of those shapes, right? Just in print without the shapes. So it says start, get num 1, get num 2, sum equals num 1 plus num 2, print sum and end. Now, what you'll notice that uppercase is used here, and that was not on purpose. You know, Word documents sometimes do that to you, put caps, because actually I want your variable names that you choose for your flowchart and your pseudocode to match the variable names that you use in your Python, because that's the purpose, is to plan your program, think about it, how it's going to work, without having to know where a semicolon goes and a colon and where to indent. This is just to tell you how you're going to solve the problem. Yes?
Yeah, one of the other questions I had on the program part was spaces between.
Yes, I answered that. You may not got that email back. But spaces do not matter, but indents in Python does. But in pseudocode, indents don't matter. I always did indent on an if statement to put group the statements under the true side, and then the else you group them under the false side, and also in a loop it's easier to see. But this is the only language or scripting that I know of that actually gives you an invalid syntax error if your indent is not correct. So Python is kind of picky about the indenting, but spaces they don't care about. Like what Matthew was saying is, okay, if like this here, do you have to put spaces after sum? Sometimes you'll see sum equals num 1 plus num 2. You can if it's easier for you to go back and read it, but it's not required, okay?
You can just squish it all together.
You squish it all together. It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
And then I guess since we're talking about it too, when I entered my code, and when I entered the code, the answer code out of the book just to make it run on Python, it didn't indent automatically.
It
did not automatically.
Well, it'll give you an error if it's.
But I thought I was under the understanding that when you enter the code
Well,
in Python,
it does sometimes. It like once you do an if statement, if you try to, I don't know, we'll type one here in a minute and see. Because if I go and let's see, say I put equals 0, and then if I put if it's not equal to 1. Oh, I think it's see, it indented automatic. It depends on your statement.
I was just entering the program out of the book. But-
Well, I don't know. You must not have been in the editor. You must have been in the shell. If you're in the shell, it won't. But if you're in the editor, it will. Okay. All right. So we've got our flowchart and our pseudocode, and now our Python. Should be straight from that, but it did not use. Let's see, where did they go? Okay, this one I want to take here. Okay, so here's the problem. Print welcome, which that was not in our pseudocode and flowchart, so that didn't have to be there. N1 equals input. So the only thing that I didn't do, or that I had to add in my flowchart and my pseudocode where it says get num1, this is the actual Python statement that does that, right? So in my where did they go? Let me move this over so we can see them both. Okay, so if I look at my pseudocode, start is like the print welcome, right? So that goes there. Get num1 is this statement. N1 equals input, enter a number. But I said to use this variable, so I did have an interim variable. And I had to do a conversion here, right? I had to convert N1 to an integer. Because if I don't, and it tries to, let's see what happens. I'm going to do a couple of these things so that you'll know if you get this error. Okay, so if I take this line out and this line, well, I'll just do the one and you'll be able to see. I think it won't work. Okay, then I would have to say N1. Don't need to do it that way. N1 and N2, right? Oh, this is multiply because we used this last night. I took plus. Okay, so this is the way we would think that we would be able to do it because that matches our pseudocode statement for statement, right? So let's see what happens if I try to run it like that. Oh, freaking hundreds of messages. Run module. Welcome. Enter a number. Okay, I'm going to enter 4. So it didn't add them, right?
Yes.
No, it did not add them.
Or, I mean,
No,
it did not.
it just pushed them together and printed them out. Okay, so I didn't actually get an error. It just did not add them because it looked at them as a character. Okay, so now if I go and fix it. Oops, that didn't work. Okay, so now if I run it, should work, right? Number 3. Here we go.
So without, when you added those back in, it's actually counting it as a number now, where previously it was just a character.
That's
Is that what it
correct.
is?
And so what it was doing, it wasn't actually summing them.
Right, so to it, it's not really a number, it's just another character.
Yeah, just like if you were writing out, or it told you to put your address in, your address would have numbers in it most of the time. An address, like if it's 415 Council. There's numerics, but it's a label. It's not something that you want to do any kind of calculation on. So that's what you have to, why you have to tell it, hey, this is an integer. I want you to be able to use it in a calculation. Okay, now something that you saw that we did last night is the only thing that I need to do is one thing. If I want this to multiply instead of add, what do I need to do? Yeah, and in programming and multiplication, you can't use an X or a dot, you have to use an asterisk. And that's what it is in every language, is an asterisk. And so now I can change this, although it really doesn't matter. I can say, because it's just a now it's more accurate, I guess.
Would it work if you had some there though?
It would still work. Also, you can put any variable name you want. Let's see. 3, 4, 12. Okay. Yes.
So, in the previous program, you had G. That
Right.
stands for guess.
Right. Right.
And N stands for number.
Right. But you didn't have to use those. You can use any variable you want. I could put up here, I could put add end 1. So I'll call it add 1. And I'll call this one add 2. I'll change this back to sum. And this back to sum. Okay, so my input's going to go into, like right here, if I wanted to see what that is, I could do another print and put print add 1 so I'd know what it's taking in. And then I could say print add 2, and it'll print those two variable names.
Would you have to change the other variable? The
Which one?
N1 and N2?
Yes, I do. Yes, I will. Thank you. So I'd have to change this one and this one, or it would have not worked correctly. Okay, so here I go, run module. Okay. So even though it looks like it's a number, doesn't look any different. When I said print add 1, it printed 3, and add in 2 was 7. The only thing that's different is the Python browser is still looking at it as a character, so it won't add them together or multiply them, which is that one was still set at multiply, I guess. Because
So
it
could you
did.
have written G1 and G2?
Oh yeah, you can write any variable name that you want. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes more sense, okay? All right, so let's go back and look at our Evernote and see where we're at for this, what your assignment. You've already done chapter 1. And so if you want, at the end of this week, these are the things that should be done, but there is nothing but the reading quiz that actually I will know that you've done, because the assignments in chapter 1 do not have to be loaded to your drive. So in week 2, what we'll be doing, which I should have put that at the end of here, is starting chapter 2. So I want you to read chapter 2 before class on Tuesday, and I'll update week 2 this weekend, or probably tomorrow. Okay? So, and also project 1 will be out there. It's already out there if you wanted to look at it, and it's in the content. So, but it's not due yet in this class. Okay. All right. You guys seem to be getting that. That's great. Used to, when I taught logic, we did not even get to loops until about the 9th week of class. So that was the old book. So this book gives it all to you at first in a capsule, and then you break it down, which is really how object-oriented programming is. Procedure-oriented was the other way. You learn a little bit, then a little bit more, then a little bit more, okay? All right, so if there's any questions, y'all have a few minutes left, I guess. I'm letting you out early, 15 minutes early. So that'll give you time if anybody has any individual questions. Otherwise, you're free to go.
You said read chapter 2 by Tuesday?
Yes, please. Let me go in here and end
When is
this.
the quiz due, Friday?
Let me look on here and see. 23rd, they said. So I usually do it Sunday. Yeah, I usually do it Sunday night of the week we start the next chapter.
I came in here Tuesday, I didn't remember crap, and same with my Monday classes. I don't remember anything, because I stay up till 4 a.m.
Yeah.